everyone, it's Lex, your host for Mondays on DollyHolics, and since this is our first real week of doing videos, we're covering everything you need to know about getting your first doll. Later on in the week there'll be other aspects that will be covered, but I'm going to cover how to get the doll that you want and not get something that you really just don't like. Real quick, I'm going to tell you guys about my first doll and why I chose him. My first doll was a Delph CPL. I don't really know why I picked him. I think he was just really popular at that time and there were a lot of pictures of him around and I just really liked him. So I bought him, but eventually realized that there's some things about him that I really didn't like, so I sold him, bought other dolls that I did like, and now I'm much happier. So I'm going to try to tell you guys how to not do what I did. Even though I really did love him though. I mean, he was real cute. Look at him. Yeah. Okay, right. There are a few things that you should never really consider when you're looking at pictures to buy a doll because they're misleading and they're things that you can change later on, so it doesn't even matter anyway. Never buy a doll because you like the clothes it's wearing in the picture, because you can always change the clothes, and if you really like those clothes, you could probably find them online later and buy them for your doll that you do pick. So don't ever buy a doll just because you like the clothes it's wearing. Kind of on a similar note, don't get a doll because you like the way it's painted. You might see a doll with a really nice face up, but underneath that face up, maybe its nose is too big, or maybe its lips are shaped funny, or maybe you don't like the way the eyes are shaped or something. You really want to look on DOA, maybe in the picture request section, and see what that doll looks like without a face up, so you can really tell what the face looks like. And if you like it, go for it, but if not, and you just like the face up, don't get that doll. You can always have a face-up artist paint the doll differently to look like that picture that you liked originally, so also don't buy a doll because, this is similar to the clothes thing, but don't buy a doll because you like the eyes and the wig it's wearing, because those things are super easy to change. And when you're kind of new, like I know when I was new it was really tough to imagine what a doll looked like without eyes and a wig, because the only doll I've seen in person up to that point was like a Barbie or my twin or something, that you couldn't change those things, so it was just the way that it was in the picture. But those things are super easy to change, and if you like the haircut a doll has but you think, oh, his face is kind of ugly, but oh my god, that hair, that's not a good way to think. Bottom line is all of these things can be super easily changed, like clothes, hair, wig, face up, so if it's any of those things that's attracting you to that doll in that picture, you should probably do a little research first and see what the doll looks like blank before you buy it. These are things that you always should consider when you're thinking about buying a doll. Its face. The most important thing I think about a doll is its face, obviously, because it's the face, you know. If you're an anime fan, maybe you shouldn't get a super realistic doll like a Limois or, you know, a Dolce, because if you're attracted to the anime aesthetic with like really big eyes and like pouty little lips, then you're probably not going to be happy with a doll that looks like a real person. But if you're not an anime fan and you are into realistic things, you probably are not going to want to get a doll like a Dolphy Dream with huge eyes and little, you know, anime nose. So make sure you're looking at the right kind of doll for you, if that makes any sense. Also, look at tons of owner pictures of the face, because there are some companies where the pictures will look totally different from what you get in real life, so you need to look on DOA at a lot of owner pictures to find out what the doll actually looks like in real life. This doesn't really apply so much if you know that you're going to stick with the hobby. Price is a really big thing to consider because these dolls really aren't cheap. And you can't exactly just go to a store and return it if you see that you don't like it. You're probably going to lose money if you're selling it secondhand. Especially the way it is now. Like, it's really hard to sell dolls now because that whole economy crash. If you're really new to the hobby and you know that you're the kind of person that, you know, you get into a hobby and then a week later you're like, oh, that's not cool anymore, I'm into this now. You probably don't want to spend $3,000 on like a super limited, one-of-a-kind doll for your first doll, because if you fall out of interest, then you're stuck with it. At the same time, you don't want to buy something that's really cheap just because it's cheap, because if you don't look at all the things I said before, like the face or whatever, and the body, and you buy something cheap and you get it and you're like, ah, this is actually kind of ugly, you're gonna end up wasting your money there too. It's kind of hard to explain this one because I don't want to say don't buy something super expensive but don't buy something cheap either, but just make sure that you find something that's in your price range without getting something that you don't like, if that makes any sense. The next important thing after price is probably definitely size. I know when I got my first doll, I went like all out and I got the biggest size. Well, not the biggest, because doll shoes are a little bigger, but I got like super dollfy size, 60 centimeter, huge. He was big, man. I can't even, he was really big. And this really, again, is hard to judge if you've never actually had a doll before. The two things I can definitely suggest is to look on Den of Angels. I know that there's a lot of threads like put a doll next to a water bottle or put a doll next to a ruler. This, you may think a water bottle is kind of big, but when you actually put one of the smaller dolls up next to it, you know, it's kind of the same size. So that may be surprising. Like, I know when I got my first doll, I was really shocked. I was not expecting that big of a doll. Even though I read the measurements and I put it out on a ruler, it was just still weird. So make sure you know, really consider what size you want. And another thing you can definitely do, if you have, you know, access to this, go to a doll meet, you know? See some different dolls that are there. I definitely wish that I would have done that because it would have been a lot easier for me to pick. To other people, this might not be like a super huge deal, but to me, it's pretty big. You definitely have to consider skin color when you're buying a doll. There's usually 3 choices. There's tan, white, or normal skin. I usually go with normal skin dolls just because white skin, it scares me a little bit because I had a white skin Chiwu and he was yellowing quick and it freaked me out. So I sold him. I told the person I was selling it to, don't worry, but I couldn't really handle it. Make sure, I mean, if your character is, you know, a freckly little redhead who's supposed to be really pale, go with white skin, but make sure whatever skin color you buy, you know how to take care of it. Do your research, again, on DOA, and you know how to protect your dolls from the sun, how to keep them from yellowing for as long as you can, because all dolls are going to yellow, that's just the way it is. And some tan dolls even turn green. My Nara's faceplate is turning a little green, but, you know, just make sure you're prepared to deal with whatever, I don't want to say consequences, but whatever yellowing might happen. When I first got into the hobby, this wasn't really as big of a thing because there weren't that many companies to choose from, but now that there are so many new dolls with so many new, you know, like, what am I doing? With so many new, like, posing mechanisms and different joint systems, you need to think about what you're going to be doing with your doll and how posable you need it to be. Like, you need to ask yourself, am I going to be posing these things and taking pictures of them all the time, or am I just going to sew for them and maybe display them on the shelf because maybe they won't need to be that posable? I know with my dolls, he's an exception. I don't really know why. I think I just really like his face, so his huge lack of posability isn't that big of a deal for me, but you need to consider, is it okay if I get a doll and it can't bend his arm more than 90 degrees? But if you'd rather have a doll that can do more complex things, like even just, you know, face touch, just consider what you're going to be using the doll for and how posable you want it to be, because if you get a doll that can't pose well and you're expecting it to pose well, it's going to be a disappointment. I think that's about it for what you need to think about when you're getting a first doll. If you guys have any other questions, if I missed anything that you're kind of unsure about, please let me know. I apologize this is so late today. It's 8:36 p.m. right now where I am, and it's just been like a crazy week for me because midterms are coming up and I have like a billion packets to do and they're all like 50 pages. Quick photo tip: when you're taking pictures of your dolls, make sure, this is like a mistake I see all the time, make sure you're not taking a picture of it like this, okay? Because up the nose shots are really just, that doesn't look good. Make sure it's at a decent angle that isn't up the nose, because no one wants to see up your doll's nose. Okay, well, that's it for me, so I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Good luck with all you guys picking your first dolls out there. Bye!